social insurance number, bank account, rental agreement, health card, bus pass, driver's license, mobile phone plan. Top things you need to know for your first week of living in Canada.
กด subscribe ให้พวกเราด้วยนะคะ
Sadi Kap and welcome to Tishi Dilko. Remember to hit the like button, turn on notifications, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our content. So today we're going to be talking about your first week in Canada checklist. What are all the main things you need to know and the general process about getting those things done for your first week in Canada? Whether you're coming to Canada on a student visa, a worker visa, what are the critical things you need to know and get done and how to go about doing them? So a number of these topics we've actually gone into depth in some of our other videos, and we'll put links in the description so you won't miss any of the other videos if you have more specific questions. You're coming to Canada as either a student or a temporary worker. There are some common things both groups will need to do for their first week in Canada. Probably the first and most important would be obtaining a social insurance number. A social insurance number is a unique 9-digit identifier provided by our federal government. Not only do you need it for working and to file your taxes when those are needed, but to access a number of services like having a bank account in Canada, health card, etc. In Canada, a social insurance number goes by a SIN card by short. They don't actually give you a physical card anymore. You can apply online for a SIN number. And this, once you receive it, will allow you to, again, set up a bank account, your employer or your educational institution. So not every student necessarily needs to have a social insurance number. A lot of banks do ask for it. However, if you're not dealing with any sort of banking which involves interest, like a interest-generating bank account or a credit card, you don't necessarily have to have a SIN in order to open a bank account. Workers, however, every single worker needs a SIN number. It's required by your employer, and it'll be required when you file Canadian income tax. So it's pretty important that you get your SIN application going. Definitely critical thing in your first week, for sure. We're going to make a video probably next month about Canadian income taxes as well, because they are coming due for the previous year shortly. Another critical thing to do for your first week in Canada, whether you're a student or coming to Canada as a worker, is setting up a bank account. We have a whole other video on Canadian banking. With Canadian banking, well, you might be able to look at accounts and options online. Your first appointment and to actually set up the account does have to be in person, so your identity can be verified either via your passport or if you do get a provincial ID in Canada. So they'll set up your account in person and you can choose what options you want. And then really from there, you can do most of your banking online. So since you have to be in person for that first account, that's why it's critical this is done in your first week of settling in Canada. And again, we have a full video on banking in Canada if you want to check it out. Securing a place to live. Now, ideally, you'll want to do this ahead of time when you're still in Thailand. A number of landlords will give virtual tours, or if you know someone in the city you're moving to, they can do a walkthrough with you. But obviously, it's good to have a rental agreement and a place to live secured before you move here. If you don't, there are Airbnb temporary short-term options which can help tide you over until you do have an agreement in place. Again, we have a whole detailed video on this. You can check the link out in the description for that one as well. Provincial health card. Regardless of what province you're moving to in Canada, you will be able to apply for a provincial health card. Again, both if you're a student or if you're coming as a worker. The provincial health cards, again, usually it's an online application. With the online application, the only thing that's generally required, filling out some personal details and having an address in Canada. And these provincial health cards enable you to obtain our healthcare system in Canada. Regardless if you have an Alberta health card, that'll work across the country. And so regardless of what province you're moving to, your card will work in the province you're living and across the country if you're ever traveling and do require access to healthcare. We do have a video on health cards in Canada and how that works, so you can check that one out too. Next critical thing you should do in your first week in Canada is get a mobile phone plan. There are many national providers that work, again, all across the country. There's lots to choose from, and really it's just what you choose is up to your needs and what you desire from a phone provider. So last but not least, transportation. How are you going to get around when you're in Canada? You might be considered driving or, a bus pass or a combination of both. So what are the two things you need to know? If you're thinking about driving in Canada, regardless if you hold a study permit or a work permit, you may or may not have to test and apply for a provincial driver's license. The rules are different for each province. Here in Saskatchewan, with a work or study permit, you are able to drive on your Thai driver's license for the duration of that permit. So you don't have to obtain a provincial license in order to drive legally as long as you still have a valid work or study permit. However, after that expires and if you decide to stay in Canada, if you obtain permanent residence or some other arrangement, then at that point, you would have to apply and test for a Saskatchewan driver's license. However, each province has their own rules on that. You can read about those online. One other thing to note is provincial departments that issue driver's licenses generally also issue provincial IDs. It doesn't permit you to drive per se, but it does allow you to obtain a photo ID of that province you have residence in. And the only reason this is helpful, and it's up to you whether you choose it or not, is that, if you are going to a place that, might serve alcohol, for instance, and you need an ID, it might be worthwhile to get a photo ID which proves your age rather than carrying around your passport. It's a little safer, and usually it's only $10 or $15 to have that made up. So if you're not thinking about driving, or if you also just want another option for transportation, you can get a bus pass. All the major cities across the country will have a city-run bus system. So with the city bus systems, you can generally buy, a monthly pass. You can pay annually. You can, just prepay for a certain amount of rides. Or, if you're only going to use the bus every so often, you can also just pay per use, generally with a tap, debit or credit card, or, with some systems still involving, cash as well. With the bus pass, if you are coming as a student, one good thing to know is that most universities across the country do include an annual bus pass as part of your tuition. Each university will be different, but so if they have that agreement in place, your university would be able to issue you a bus pass for the duration of your term at school. That'll be included in your costs of tuition at school. But we hope you enjoyed this information. Again, a number of the topics have separate videos in them. Feel free to check out those links and go into more detail. The things we listed today are what we feel are the most critical things to check off the list for your first week in Canada. There's other things, but don't necessarily have to do them in the first week. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any videos, and feel free to share the content with any friends that might be interested in this video. Thank you for the support. Thanks for watching. Sadi Cup.